a drastic change in his personality, his awareness, and his confidence, in his anxiety. For those that don't know, my dad was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. It's a strange type of dementia mixed with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, often misdiagnosed as Parkinson's. The symptoms are finally noticed and it's diagnosed. 50 to 90% of the brain destruction has already taken place. And over a matter of weeks and months, it just changes. And hard part that I'm struggling with is accepting the fact that this might be how it's always going to be for as long as he's on Earth. That part is hard to swallow, and it's really really hard to see him go from that to just lifeless and someone that is in there somewhere, but it's not there anymore.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 3H. Today we've got my cousin, Micah Brink, with us. I've grown up with Micah. I've seen him, and I used to play with him when he was super young. And I remember visiting them on vacations, and the first day Micah would see me would want nothing to do with me. And then by the end of the trip, we were best buds, and we wouldn't want to leave each other. So that was, and now I've seen him kind of grow up, get married, start a career. So super excited to kind of talk with Micah. So welcome.
Good to be here. I go back to I think the 1 or 2 summers you spent in Texas with us, and you came in. You're like, you lived in my room. You stacked all your tips on your cash on the side of your table. It was like a wad of cash. Then yeah, we had a lot of fun. We went to Bahama Bucks. We got like slushies, and then introduced me to 21 Pilots and all
Yeah.
shebang. So it was a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time. I feel like I've influenced in some way the music style of all of you guys in one way or the other. Maybe not directly, but just from listening to it in the car and talking about it. And now you guys have your own style, but I think we all have 21 Pilots and AJR, and so yeah, some good times there.
There's something about listening to a song for the very first time, and it's like just opens your mind. Like, whoa, this is what this genre feels like. I remember listening to Ride and was like, God, this is crazy. This is such a good song. And then you want to listen more and more. And then that kind of started just an exploration of different artists and stuff like that. So that was a cool core memory for sure.
Taco Bell visits always the best.
So,
Yeah,
so to this day,
we both have changed over time, and we've gone through different things and in different ways. I've got 2 kids now. I've got a dog. You're newly married, starting a brand new career. Not necessarily brand new, but maybe more official now because you're out of school. Tell us a little bit about what you do right now at Amazon.
so I am a operations manager at a Amazon fulfillment site down in West Columbia. A bit of background: it's a traditional softline site, so primarily just sortable items. The typical item you might buy from Amazon, but typically like smaller than a chair. We can actually fit in these bins that we call, and we also carry apparel, high value items. Basically, I'm in the inbound department, so I run inbound, and then on the outbound side of things, we package boxes that go directly to the person's house, either one by one if they order one item at a time, or if you order 4 or 5 items, they'll get packed all together in one box, and they'll all show up at the same time. Yeah, that's in West Columbia, South Carolina. After my junior year of college, someone reached out to me on LinkedIn. Was like, "Yo, you should really do a internship." And I was like, "I don't know. Like, it's usually you have to travel for it. Um, it's in a different state if you apply super late." And I applied super late that year. And so, well, I skipped it the first year, and then the next year I was like, "I guess we'll shoot at it. We'll see what happens." I landed in Louisville, Kentucky. So I've never stepped foot in Kentucky ever before. But met a lot of great mentors, a lot of great friends. One of my groomsmen I met there. and that was at a customer return site. So when when you return your package, that's where it went. So I fulfilled that internship for 3 months. Absolutely loved it. Loved the people side of things. And then after I graduated, I wanted to stay in kind of the upstate, kind of the Greenville area, but the closest they could land me was in Columbia. So um, definitely getting plugged into our church here at Shandon Baptist, and pretty much loving like what I do. The only thing is the shift. The shift is tough. Um, Working graveyard from Wednesday to Saturday. A lot of great people. For some reason, the night shift from Wednesday to Saturday. Those people have been there for forever. They just love the night shift and they love their job. They love what they do, which means my job is easier because these people, my team, are super tenured. They've pretty much seen every single thing that could possibly go wrong. I was blessed enough to join their team and trained pretty well because on night shift you have a lot more leeway with developing yourself, learning different things, learning different strategies and ways that you can boost your career, different projects. You have a lot more time to spend on night shift than you would on a day shift with a lot more people and a lot other crazy things going on. So that's the benefit of it. I feel like I've developed a little bit more quickly than some of my other peers that joined with me back in January. But, yep, run inbound. Got a team of 3 or 4 people that I do it with, and we'll have pretty much upwards of 200 people that we'll manage every night. Make sure the injection of the work goes smoothly, and that we stow it as well. I'm the technical department is stow. That we stow it with good quality in a timely manner, and then we get the customer orders prioritized and shipped out in a timely manner as well. So that's a little bit of what I do. I do love
Yeah.
it. The work life balance is definitely tough. Being newly married and with Libby being a teacher from Monday to Friday, noon to 3. So it's usually like she gets home at 3:30, and then I'll leave around 5 whenever I'm working. So it's like, hey, have some dinner, maybe watch something, and then I'm on my way to work. So it definitely puts a strain on it on life for sure. It's a lot of patience and a lot of waiting. I feel like every couple goes through some type of sacrifice their first few years of marriage, especially with kids and
Mhm.
everything. So trying to be patient and wait it out and spend as much intentional time with family and with her as I can while being on nights. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you didn't always think as a career in the future. Oh, I'm going to work for Amazon. Was it just opportunity? I remember at least for a while there wasn't like a direction necessarily. It was just let me get business. So what kind of was it? Just like I said, opportunity, or what kind of drew you to Amazon?
much opportunity. Definitely knew I needed an internship going to junior, senior year. And I didn't want to go into that year without one. I'd say like starting out of college, the money was definitely there. The opportunity for career growth for sure. Like I think when I started, I just thought in my mind like putting Amazon on your resume, no matter what position you are, to be a remote, dispatcher. Just saying that you work for one of the world's largest companies, resume, I would say would start off on a pretty good foot. So, yeah, I accepted the internship. It was kind of the only thing I had going for me at the time. When I joined in Kentucky for the first time, it just opened my eyes to the strategy, the business that like you think of Amazon kind of just big corporation, but I mean it's a business. It's a customer fulfillment business, and there's tools, there's strategies to get to the customer quicker in a more safe and way that preserves the quality really well. So I was opened up to all these tools and all these metrics, all this data that Amazon just gives you to develop and to make stories out of. But then on the flip side of things, I'm surrounded by hundreds of people every single day, and I'm like, what other career, what other business position would I be able to get that would have more exposure to people than I do right now? And I was like, most business degrees, they're going into CPA, they're going to financial advisor, doing some type of insurance work, and you're in an office, and you maybe have a small team, and that's pretty
Hmm.
much it. Little opportunity to travel and stuff like that. So I was like, man, like so many people that I can grow and meet and just talk with at different stages of life, but like an opportunity for sure to share the gospel and to share faith and to tell people why I do what I do. Why did you wait to get married? Why did you guys not live together? And it's like that's such the norm in the secular world, but I definitely have now, and I did before, just such an opportunity to touch so many different people. And I think that's probably what hit home for me when I first was introduced to Amazon. Just so many people, because obviously it's such a big company, and I guess the opportunity there to do something deeper than myself and to reach out and love people, because there's a lot of broken people just going through a lot of things, especially in a house setting. I think a mix of those two. I think the data that Amazon gives you was just like eye opening, and I know that I could pretty much explore anything I want to and make a story out of it and, you know, hopefully improve the business in any way possible. But then the people side of things just blew my mind. And I absolutely loved it when I first joined.
Do you believe that, because your dad working in hospitality for a long time, do you think that that had any influence on your decision to, or maybe not decision, but he was heavily involved in people and loved the people he worked with, and it was very influential when it came to that stuff. And he was also very much in the operation side of the hotel, not stuck in an office somewhere. He was always wanting to be out on the floor. Do you think that that had any influence?
Yeah, I saw the way he led his people and the interaction that he had and the touch points that he had when a GM could have easily just, sat back and looked at the numbers and delegated to his team. I think he was
Mm-hmm.
very much a people person at that point in life. I think that aspect of it I definitely learned from, and I'm still learning as people manager. When it came to the hospitality side of things, for some reason I thought it was super cool that we could see all these cities and all these hotels and go out to eat and see kind of the world my dad lived in. I think for some reason to me it always felt like hospitality is obviously it touches every career basically, like just making people feel comfortable and welcomed. The selling rooms aspect to me was like I don't know if I want to spend my time and turning over rooms, and especially the high end like really stuck up people that you would see frequently. My dad
Sure.
met Ellen at one point, and he was just like the interaction was just not preferable at all. That aspect of things, just doing that year round, for some reason, didn't super appeal to me. That doesn't go against anything what he did or even what you do. I think even I would still be interested in pursuing that at some point. But I think yeah, off the bat, it didn't resonate with me. I guess like he did. He joined on super early, started in food and beverage, and then worked his way up. But that's kind of the reasoning why.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know obviously it came with a lot of travel as well. Do you think it had a positive impact traveling as much as you guys did?
So I've become a lot more well rounded in people groups and who change. I think change is great. Uncomfortable, but uncomfortable brings you, I think, and I think a lot of new opportunities. Like I have different, connections in different states that I think if I ever needed to crash somewhere, or if I never needed advice, or a lot of different people in different careers that I could definitely glean from. I think, yeah, it definitely, it was definitely a strain, I would say, on making new friends and making new groups, and definitely I think put a strain on me and my brothers and brought us a little bit closer. But I did love it. I love the different cities that we were able to see, and the different hotels and people and churches and schools that I was able to be a part of, different sports. It was tough. It was tough, especially the first few months, to a different state, and you have no
Hmm.
idea what you're doing. You've never met these people. Your whole life you're in a small private school, and then all of a sudden you're taking AP classes, AP history, AP English, and it's like I was not prepared for any of this going into junior year of high school, playing sports that or I guess playing teams that were much more developed and athletic than I played earlier on, and so that was a shock for sure. I enjoyed moving around, but it's definitely a challenge. I would say those first few months, every time you move, you have no clue what's going
We remember hearing about the conversations, and Matthew and Deborah would talk about, oh, well, so and so, this move was particularly hard for so and so, and not for the others. And then the next move, oh, it was particularly hard for someone else for different reasons. So, but like you said, challenges are what help us to change and improve. And without that stress, it's hard to really reach our potential. Speaking of high school, I think early on, we started, or you started, seeing signs of some hair loss going through high school. I think it's when it started. Tell us a little bit of what that was like and how you dealt with. I'm sure some people weren't very nice about it. Yeah, I'm sure others were fine, but for a lot of people, hair, and especially going through high school, hair is part of your identity. So tell us a little bit about that.
on. I think by no means do the Raiden family or Brink family have a history of Goldilocks anywhere in the family. So I don't think I was dealt good cards in that aspect. It's tough. People make comments or try to make jokes, and I don't really get too hurt by it. I guess and I know at the end of the day, like I think people try to make light of it and make jokes of it, and there's always a little bit. It's like really like you had to say that. Obviously whoever's saying it probably doesn't struggle with that themselves, and they don't. I guess they wouldn't really understand like how it feels to kind of have something called out on you that might be an insecurity. But at the end of the day, I think it's like 30%, maybe less of males that struggle with like male pattern baldness, and it's whether it's their genes or whether it's actually if they get older and the things that they eat, the nutrients that they do or don't get. I don't know if I ever would have been saved at any point if I had improved my diet or improved. It
Yeah.
was pretty early on, in high school, and I think that it definitely did affect confidence and even posture and social situations for sure, especially in a new setting, like moving to a different school. And my mom was always every single school we moved to. My mom was like, "All right, you're getting a haircut and you're shaving it all off," and I'm like, "What in the world are you?" I remember we moved to Miami, and I think she always like looked at the handbook and was like, "Oh, be above the ears. It's all coming off." And I remember going to my junior year of school, like a super short haircut. And I was like, what am I doing? And that definitely didn't get me on a good foot starting at a new school. But I think it's just a matter of like toughing through it. And at some point I'm probably gonna bite the bullet and take it all off. But I don't know. It definitely affects your confidence and your security almost at some point. Can be to an unhealthy point if you overthink it and kind of make that your identity. I think I've tried not to, but it's hard to sometimes. I'll admit for sure.
Was there anything in particular that kind of helped you find your identity in something else?
Um, knowing the passage that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, right? You know, we literally talk through things like why is life this way, or why I struggle with this, whether it's years or whether it's just lifestyles we're living through. I think God makes no mistake for His children, and He knows no matter what decisions you make, good when it comes to your body, your temple. I think He knows. I think He knew what you were going to look like. At 15, at 22, at 40. And I even think he uses that to an extent to connect with different people that might go through something similar, with acne or hair loss. I think he definitely uses it, and I think kind of knowing that God specifically, um, you know, made you and created you in a way that he's going to use you for exactly something that you can do and no one else can do. Pretty cool. And I think that humbles you and says, look, Micah, like life is not all about you. It's not even any at all what about you look like, about the people you touch and the people you can impact for the kingdom. I guess knowing that it makes things a little bit more light and easier to process. If I were to say anything, it's just keeping your eyes more off of yourself and then what like how you can connect with other people and do them well. So it's hard sometimes, definitely, to take your eyes off yourself and your demeanor and your appearance and what people think of you. I mean, I think we all struggle with what people think of us to some extent. Knowing that, though, that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, it's kind of just makes you not worry about it as much. Some people would, I think.
Do you think that if you do you think your life or any of the decisions that you made would have been any different if you had the perfect skin and the perfect hair and like you had those things that the world says that you have to have? Do you think your life would be any different at this point?
I'd be more prideful. Uh, Probably think of myself a little too much when it comes, like just not worrying about that when you wake up, or you know, yeah, I think that it definitely impacts you in high school for sure when you're struggling through acne. And I think I ate my sugar intake at some point was definitely too high to where it was almost like uncontrollable. I remember playing a soccer game one time and like I was struggling with acne so bad that a couple which just kind of just merged into one. I think I got hit by a soccer ball and it kind of just all like exploded. And some guy's like, "Yo, your face is bleeding." And I'm like, it popped at one time, and I'm like, something's going on, dude. I gotta fix something that I'm eating or my water intake or something. It was probably the peanut butter that I ate, like way too much peanut butter. But, I don't know. It probably humbled me in high school, and then kind of just taught me to keep my eyes off myself and to you know um, yeah, focus more outward than inward. I don't know if it would have changed anything drastically, like if that had been any different as far as my self esteem or anything like that.
I've had different things that have happened to me going through high school and in college, whether it was an injury or just like for me, fever blisters. They pop up every now and then, and they're a good reminder, like you said, that he knows what he's doing, but it's also a reminder that you are not as great as you think you are. And there you go. Now you can walk around with this thing on your lip for a week, and most people won't even care. But sometimes I feel like even myself, I maybe I let it affect me too much. But I do think certain things in high school, had an injury not happened, or I do think that be similar to you. Maybe things would be different. Maybe I'd be a little bit more prideful. Maybe I wouldn't have let God use me in one way or another. Yeah, but I guess we never know, and can just kind of um, yeah, think about it for the future. Your dad and even your mom. I remember going to church with them when I was doing the internships, and I remember going to church, and he obviously was well dressed all the time for work, nice suit, tie, cufflinks, the whole deal. And then Sunday, just the same. You and or your mom and your dad, same thing, dressed to a T, always looking really nice. And now we kind of move on to kind of where we are now a little bit. And a lot of people probably don't know, but with the recent diagnosis for Lewy body for your dad, I know that it's drastically changed his style, his personality, just almost everything about him is essentially a shell of what he used to be. And I think, for someone that has, at least in my opinion, has had and had leading right up to when it was diagnosed and the year leading up to it, a great life. Had a little bit of a health scare, but was getting that under control. And so he had a lot of great things going for him, great kids, great wife, great career. So in a lot of ways, besides the challenges of moving or maybe a bad boss or two, his life was generally pretty simple, and not simple. It was still hard, but a lot of people don't go through a challenge like that. And kind of now, we're just talking about how the hair and that kind of defines us for him. And now for the rest of your family, you're trying to figure out, well, what's our new identity, and what's his identity, and how to, is he's still my father, but it's not the same as it used to be. For me, he's still my uncle, but I used to go to him for pretty much all of my career advice, being in the same hospitality career, and I can't do that anymore. So tell us a little bit about how this kind of the whole process has kind of gone, and how your view of him as your father has changed over time, and where you are right now.
It's definitely a deep question, and many things go into it. I remember this year. I remember him going through some health issues. Last year. This year, when I was onboarding with Amazon, I took a training. I had the option to go to San Francisco for one of the trainings, and I switched it to Dallas because I wanted to see him, and I wanted to see. He had just recently moved to Dallas and took the GM position back at DFW. I wanted to see him, and I know he was traveling back and forth from Houston at that point, so I wanted to help him out as far as that goes. So I remember going, and that trip was particularly different. His demeanor was a little bit different, and his body was a little bit different with different things going on. And it was a side of him I've never seen before. As this Louis body was developing more and more rapidly, and obviously I flew back and went on life, started prepping for the wedding and everything. Over that period of time, I started realizing, like, over the phone or in person, like, things were just a little bit, like, were really drastically different from the time that I saw him in March to the time that I saw him in May when they came for graduation, and then in June for the wedding. It was a drastic change in his personality, his awareness, and his confidence, in his anxiety. Those that don't know, my dad was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. It's a kind of a strange type of dementia mixed with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. It's often misdiagnosed as Parkinson's just because there's so many things that go into it. And the most apparent symptoms are ones that look like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or something similar. That's what originally did happen. It was diagnosed as Parkinson's, and there's different symptoms that probably was some type of Parkinson's at that point. Then you start noticing the social difference and the forgetting things and the anxiety and the kind of just not there's there's something there's something interesting when you know someone your whole life, like obviously you're my mom and then me and my brothers. The people that you know well, you start noticing a change very quickly in the way they act and the way they think, their sleeping patterns, their behavior, their diet. So all that changed over the course of time, when between seeing him in March and then graduating, getting married, moving to a new city. It's a cruel disease and something that no one really cares about or is interested in until it affects them directly, until it affects your spouse or your dad, your sibling, something you don't even know anything about until you start doing research and understanding kind of the why behind this. And I think the tough part is just knowing how far gone, especially any type of dementia or any type of Parkinson's. I think someone was talking about. I think it might have been Jordan Peterson talking about these type of diseases. They're often, when they're discovered, when the symptoms are finally noticed and it's diagnosed, 50 to 90% of the brain destruction has already taken place. You're starting to realize it after your brain has already changed and yeah, just dropped in capacity as to what your mental capacity used to be. And that part is hard because a person, a father or a spouse, and it's someone that you know in your whole life and you rely on for your whole life for advice similar to you. And over a matter of weeks and months, it just changes. And the hard part that I'm struggling with is kind of accepting the fact that this might be how it's always going to be for until he for as long as he's on Earth. That part is hard to swallow, and you know, thinking of all that his personality and his love for decorating and his love for projects and church activities, VBS sets,
Mm-hmm.
birthdays, big dinners, Thanksgiving, Christmas, vacations, but also just the loving guy that you know every single day. It's really really hard to see him go from that to just lifeless and someone that you know is in there somewhere, but it's not there anymore. Part is hard to swallow, and knowing what this means. I think what might even make it worse is just knowing that Levi is so young. My younger brother Levi is just going into high school, and just never, I guess, never thought that this would happen to 22-year-old, an 18-year-old, and then now a 15-year-old. Like something you usually think about taking care of your parents more when they're in their 70s or 80s, and definitely did not see it coming this early in life. So us taking care of him in any way we can, and my mom certainly. There's other things I could say, but that's the big moral of the story. Is it's the hard pill to swallow is the change that is now a reality, and the fact that um, it's probably going to be like this for the rest of my life. Is
Sent that video where Jordan Peterson's talking about Louis Body, and so I had watched that video like maybe it was right before. I think there was, we had some family members that thought it might have been that. So I just happened to come across it. It wasn't like I searched for it, it just popped up. And it was really, really interesting to see and gave a little bit more as to that why. A lot of people think, oh, why did this happen? How did this happen? And then for a lot of people, cancer and some cancers, things like that, there are some treatments that can be done. There are certain diseases that it can be fixed, it can be changed. It's not too late. But like it was talking about in that video and the research that you've done, it's at this point, there are still pieces that are still there. When I was able to visit my grandma and grandpa a few weeks ago, there was one day in particular where he was a little bit more aware, smiling a little bit more. They even started working on like a Mary Joseph wood carving, like he used to have, and they started working on that pretty much that same day. I drew the whole manger scene freehand in one swoop. Got him a sketchbook, so he was drawing like flowers, and so there are pieces there. But like you said, it's not, he's not the same. He's still Matthew. He's still that person that's there, but he's not the one that I'm going to go to if I need career advice. And for you, same thing. Probably not the one you're going to go to for financial advice or, those things that normally would be there. And, I talked about this some with Emily. It's one thing when you're growing up, there are kind of these different stages that your father plays during kind of your childhood to adulthood. At the beginning, it's more of a teacher, disciplinary. You're teaching them how to do things, and it goes on, and then it becomes more of like, they get into high school, and it's like, no, you need to follow these rules, and then going to college becomes more like a mentor role, and then after college, that's all those roles are still there. You're still teaching, you still can do all these things, but they play more of a role. And then when you get past college and you're married, that role changes a little bit more to more so friend than mentor than teacher. And I think I try to think of my dad in kind of the same way. Like, where do I feel like I have that connection, that friend, and what would it look like if I was in the same boat? And it's yeah, I can't imagine, and I can't imagine, like you said, just for Levi, because he's kind of in that stage of, I can't remember what exactly that stage looks like, but for him, that's a huge period of growth and development for him. and he's not able to be there. Jonah, he's in school, so he's already in the process of leaving the family to find a wife to create his own family. You've already done that, so yeah. So I think that's really hard. When you looked into the Lewy body and you looked at what the potential causes were from possibly diet, possibly exercise could have been involved, possibly medication, possibly anesthesia. So, like, all those things, they're all possibilities because obviously there's no way to know exactly what did it. But has that made you look at your lifestyle any different?
And I think, yeah, Angela does a really good job at this, is of diving deep into figuring out what the causes are, but also the repercussions. How can we make life as much as we can? How can we make life better and more meaningful after this diagnosis? And helping my dad and just spending the last, I don't want to say last, spending just time with him in a different way. She's done a really good job at helping us understand a lot of that. I know you probably know this as well from the video, but breaking it down, any type of dementia or, for instance, Alzheimer's, what they call modifiable risk factors and then non-modifiable risk factors. There's probably three or four non-modifiable risk factors, such as age, such as gender, and then your genes. Typically, in 2024, as people get older, they're going to develop these type of diseases more frequently than maybe I would. Not something you can really change. Obviously, your gender can't change, and then your genes you're kind of stuck with, as we already talked about.
Yeah.
And so there's that, but then there's the what I think Max Lugavere that did a little bit of actually did an extensive amount of research on this when his
Yeah.
mom went through it. I think he just quit his job for like 6 years and just started taking care of his mom and diving into what was causing all this. Even at that point, it was so far developed in his mom that it was hard to do anything about. But you have your non-modifiable or your modifiable risk factors such as your diet. I think even one was the amount of air pollution that you take in, depending on where you live, where you work. Those things that from an early stage, I believe, even in your 20s, your brain starts to change and almost start to head downward. Even in your 20s and 30s, even at such a young age, like your brain is already changing and aging. And that factor combined with your diet, combined with what you intake and how you take care of your body, there's certainly ways that this can be prevented or at least pushed off until a later age. It's watching that video and looking through like how my dad's diet has changed and what it should be. It definitely has an impact on our grocery list. When we go shopping, like me and Libby, when we are eating, when we're thinking through meals, we're definitely trying to, as much as possible, convert it to a large like protein diet and like fruits and vegetables. Like eating the earth is what I call it. Like how
Mhm.
God originally designed it. But yeah, the sugar intake for sure. Thinking through, especially during the holidays, or soda, or cutting soda out, or cutting candy out, or desserts, and high processed food, or bread, or anything with larger portions of sugar in it. It's definitely already started changing, and we're still trying to change it. We look at what we eat as we eat out, we make grocery lists, and as we meal prep, it's definitely already taking an impact on thinking through more so what we put in our bodies and how we take care of our bodies. I think knowing that at 22 years old is scary because I mean it's empowering because there's to some extent you have some type of agency
Yeah.
for what you are going to eat yourself and how you're going to exercise and take care of yourself. So I think that's the encouraging part, especially for a lot of us that are younger. Certainly, it definitely forces you to think through what are you putting in your body and what your life looks like.
Yeah. There's if you haven't used it already or heard of it, the app Yuka. Yuka it's an app. You scan the barcode and it will tell you the additives that are in there. It'll tell you the sodium levels, sugar levels, and it goes into detail about the additives, which ones are harmful or that have been proven harmful, ones that are limited risk, and then others that are additives but don't have any risk. So, it's good for those, whether you're looking to cut out the additives in general, whether you're looking to look more at how much sugar's in it, how much salt's in it, how much fat's in it. So you can kind of determine what's important to you, but it'll rank the food items based on that. So between that app and the idea of shopping on the edge of the store, those are our kind of two go-tos, right? Because you stay on the edge of the store, that's all your refrigerated and produce and meats. And I always like that analogy. It's a little bit easy to remember, um, but has it, do you think, or have you been able to tell how it's affected Levi or Jonah or even your mom? Is there anything that stands out?
My mom's role has changed certainly. Kind of being the owner of the family at this point. And she probably wouldn't be as much if Levi was a little bit older, but just still taking over the school aspect and um, finances and um, lifestyle and meal prep and travel and insurance, all type of things that would not have expected to be dealing with so soon and so drastically. So yeah, it's my mom's a rock star, and we all know it. She always has been, and she's taken on this new role with confidence, but taking a toll. I think she knows it too, just with work, school, and just different things in life, church, and trying to still keep a relationship with me, Jonah, and Levi, and she's doing a great job with that. But yeah, it's something I think she never saw coming, and we never saw coming. And then for Levi as well, he's 15 years old, but he has the maturity of someone my age. I think maybe even older. Honestly, he's taking that new responsibility as he's taking it seriously, and he's done a great job. It's just supporting my mom, supporting my dad, my grandparents through it all. But at the same time, it's needs a lot of leadership in his life. I did at that age, and I still do a lot of accountability and a lot of mentors. So even though he's taking on that new role, it's like he still has to. We have to still make sure he's focusing on himself and still becoming the man that he's going to become. I think without my dad, already being in that role, it's been harder for him to kind of accept that and more so search for advice and for help outside of my dad.
Yeah.
Then me and Jonah talk about all the time, and he's done good as well as far as taking on his own life while he's in school and being responsible as best as Jonah can. But I think it's just something that like I wouldn't expect boys at younger of an age to go through something like that, and definitely affects just the relationship we had with him and kind of the thought of like, man, what is life going to look like now? Regardless of how much advice we got for him, he was always just the guy that we could call and talk through things and just just talk through and explain what's going on in life and for help at a certain point, plan things with. So yeah, I wouldn't expect them to go through this, and I hate it for them, and I know they're doing well and taking it well, but I definitely see the toll that it takes on them and it takes on me. Just realizing how different life is, and
Do you feel any responsibility since you being the oldest, any responsibility to kind of be that new, in a I don't want to say father figure, but kind of that father figure for Jonah and Levi?
for sure. And I'm challenged as well. Like I could do a better job at stepping into that sort of role, and even if I'm not giving advice per se, since I'm going to, I have some things to share, but not a whole deal of wise advice. But at least taking on as much as I can the father mentality, and it's more so shepherding. I guess would be a better word, to make sure they're just still taken care of, and talk through things that they have questions about when it comes to moving on with life and getting married and working through college, and different degrees and different jobs and different insurance, whatever. Yeah, I see myself taking on that just a little bit more, and that's something I wouldn't have expected to do, being newly married, but it's challenging for me, and I think it's stretching me in a way that I would not have thought to now kind of be maybe the go-to person for different things when it comes to being men and to growing up.
When are you able to go visit your mom and dad often, or kind of?
I probably see him every few weeks. Seeing my dad is different every time. He's in a different mental state every time. Some days he's doing great, some days not so much. For me, seeing them is always too short. I'm even an hour and a half away, and I still wish I could see them more frequently. And I will, I hopefully will, starting off. Probably when I switch shifts, it might be an easier thing to do. Visit them more through a couple of days at a time, but yeah, I visit them as much as I can. Going to Levi's games and stuff like that. Trying to still maintain that relationship I had with my dad, and just going on walks and talking through things, how he's feeling, and how I can help. It definitely pulls on the heartstrings every time I go and every time I think about it. Because, like I said, it's different, and seeing him kind of just go through that and struggle through it, it's tough for sure. Especially for a guy that had so much charisma and so much. I think every person that came into the family um, touched him first, and they're like connected with him. Like, even I know Emily did, and I know Libby did when they came into the family, because that's just who he is, and he's a people person, and he was always that way. So kind of, my mom is the glue in every sense of the word, but then my dad was a glue, even of himself, connecting a lot of us, especially different family members, and not having that glue.
Has there been a moment where your faith was challenged?
I feel like through different moves, seeing how it protected us, especially during COVID when my dad moved from Miami to Virginia, and seeing how his job was protected and our security was protected during then. It's kind of already helped me see he has a plan, and he has reasons for everything that he does, and that he allows come into our life. But yeah, there's always the why question, and there's always like, what did I do wrong? There's always, did I spend enough time? There's always, what could I have done differently? Why is this dragging on for months and almost a year at this point? Well, it has been for years with certain health issues, and I think the temptation that some people might not talk about is ignoring it and kind of pushing it out of your life, and pushing God out of your life in a certain sense. Yeah, people process it in different ways. They might get angry, they might get anxious, they might get depressed. There's certain parts of those that come in and out every now and then, but I think the dangerous part is just not worrying about it and kind of forgetting it and pushing it to the side, maybe because it's easier, and that's something that I've struggled with for sure. Just and maybe just going to work, and you know going to work because it's kind of an escape, just processing it and thinking through it. But then even at home, just kind of maybe not making that phone call when you could have made that phone call, just because it's just easier to ignore it and to do something else in that moment. I think the dangerousness of that is not relying on the Lord to get you through it and to help you process it, and to ask for wisdom from Him, to know what the next step is, and to know how to help my wife and siblings and cousins process this. I think that's the thing that I've fallen into, is kind of ignoring and not talking to God as much about it. We pray for them as often as we can, and I'm getting better at walking through, or I think I am, walking with God as far as walking through trials goes. But my faith was definitely tested when all this happened, and even your first year of marriage, you have expenses that pop up, you have questions that never get answered, and things that I never learned that I probably could have growing up. And it's like you're starting this whole new life, but then in addition to that, your parents are going through something that is life changing and drastically different. And I would encourage everyone like to not ignore these trials and to walk with God through them every single day and to rely on Him, because like through those trials, He works our faith and He tests our patience, and just grows into a stronger person and teaches us how to rely on Him more. But it's been tested for sure. It's no lie. I think it all has for all of us. It's a very good question.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I don't know if it's necessarily just a you thing. I would say probably a lot of men would choose to ignore it, because acknowledging it means that we're going to have to think about it. Probably it's going to end up being emotional, which is not, a favorite of men in general. I'd probably say I'm in the same boat. Emily will. She's asked me before, she's like, why don't you like talking about Matthew? I was like, well, it's not gonna it's not gonna help me to talk about it because I'm just gonna get emotional. I'm gonna get upset. But probably at the same time, maybe that is something important, because maybe it's not just for me, like you said. It could be for the people around me that they need to talk about it, and me talking about it will help them, which maybe will help me. And it's not necessarily like not necessarily that. I don't think ignoring it, I don't think there's something wrong with it necessarily, but I think it's that whole challenge, right? To be uncomfortable. If we don't open up and get uncomfortable um, and yeah, and let God challenge us and help us work through it, then we're missing an opportunity to grow and in the end be better for the kingdom. So that's a great point you got there. So hopefully, a lot of other guys hear it and take it to heart, because I'm sure they have a lot of other hard conversations that they're not having because it's easier to not.
I've been challenged by Libby to process and she's big on processing things and working through things mentally. And probably more designed like that to process those things. And I don't love doing it, and I don't do it quite honestly, as much as maybe other people do. But yeah, she's challenged me to do that because at the end of the day, like rapidly things might change. One day you're gonna wake up and it's gonna be, wow, where did this relationship go? Like, where did this conversation with my brothers go that we used to have? Processing it is important and something that I definitely don't do all the time, but challenge to all the time to do it because yeah, it's probably healthy. I don't know. it's
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like that for me at all. Just spend time with those people and then kind of when I'm away from it, just not think about it. But
I think what a good question would be is when there are opportunities to have those hard conversations. How do you start those conversations? Like, how do you say, okay, guys, this is going to be a deep emotional conversation? Obviously, people are going to, they'll probably not be interested. I've been going to this thing on Thursdays when I can. Definitely not perfect. Miss some opportunities there. But we go there and they're wanting these tables that are grouped into anywhere from 3 to 5, 6 people to talk about this book that we're reading through. And they're asking the men to be open and to share. And you've got these guys that they meet once a week. I have a group and we have a leader. And, um, I doubt my leader will hear this podcast, but if he does, it'll just be a challenge for him to reach out to the guys that are sitting at his table. But I've missed multiple days, no response. But they wanted us to open up. I opened up a little bit during the meeting along with one other guy, and then the others not so much. And then that was pretty much the end of it. So like I don't hear from those guys. I only see them on Thursdays, and that's it. So they're expecting men to open up and do something, but men, I don't believe, are they're not designed for that. They're designed. Remember, I was listening to some video. Anyway, men are designed to be shoulder to shoulder, like on a sports team, like on a football team, or going to war. Shoulder to shoulder. Like they're not designed to be face to face. Having a conversation. They're meant to be side by side, dealing with something important, and then those conversations can still happen, but they should be fighting essentially a common goal, whether that's a sport or an activity or a workout challenge, whatever it is. But that's where men were designed to connect, essentially, is what it was. How do you have those connections? How do you force those connections when we're not fighting any wars, not going to battle with anybody? There's certain that we just don't do anymore. So it only leaves a few options, and that's working out. And a lot of people don't want to work out. So it's like, you're limited to now these conversations just in a group setting and expect men to all of a sudden change kind of who they are or how they're designed to be. So I don't think it's a bad thing that men are designed to be that way, but I think that's kind of the question that I would have is how do we make those connections, and how do we get past that while talking to our wives, because that's how they're designed to be. They like those conversations. So I don't know. I think that's the question right there.
And I think that's what I love about 3H is that space to challenge each other to work towards something common. Working out, something where you can bond like that. I'm sure you do. I'm sure every guy does. I know I struggle with working with on solving versus emotionally processing to hard things and challenges and pain. My instinct and my reaction is to, all right, like, what can we do? All right, let's change. Let's do something about it. Be done. We'll work through it, and cool, sounds good. That's never. In fact, it's probably mostly not the answer. And I think it should be the answer as far as solvers as shepherds to the family. She's always working with me on just talking through things and being your person just to go to talk through things and to process and to cry and to share things with. It's weird because we're hardwired to do that, and when men are not working toward a common goal, not processing, when they're not problem solving, get a little weird in our heads as to what to do with certain information. think it, I think you're right. That is the question as far as what do we do with that. And I think 3H is a great way to is a great of what men should be doing is partnering together, working through scripture and through leadership and through shepherding, through our jobs, whether it's hospitality or anything else. Yeah, more of that team effort. That's interesting that you say that. I never really heard it said that way, to work toward a common goal together. It makes sense to me as far as how we're hardwired and meant to do things and accomplish things for sure.
Yeah. I think, at least for me, that's why it seems easier to, like, I'd rather work out with my wife than sit down and have a conversation sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes it's easier because she'll listen to this. But, sometimes it's just easier. Like, I'd rather common goal is let's work out together, or we're accomplishing something, versus sometimes talking. I don't feel like we accomplished anything. And I'll get frustrated because I present, 3 or 4 different scenarios that would work out, but that's not what she wants or needs. So hopefully, and maybe she can attest, but hopefully that's gotten better, at least a little bit. I've tried to keep my mouth shut and just listen more. So, so we'll see. I know we talked about some of it already, but what excites you right now the most about the future? Kind of despite everything that's the challenges that you guys have had, both, well, just in life in general.
I love that question. Honestly, it's family. It's the fact that there's opportunities maybe to live closer to some family or to live closer to maybe you guys or to Libby's mom and sister as well. That it's career changes. you know, getting through this night shift, and then maybe different careers that Libby might explore. It's that, and then I think hope of the future, and a family, and to create and mentor connections with different men in church and still in Greenville. It's a combination of all that. The change that I'm excited to see as far as city we're going to move in, and family is going to be closer, and so hopefully developing that what we grew up in, that aspect that we all grew up together and spent a lot of time together, and hopefully make creating that with our kids and with our families is something I really look forward to, and look forward to different, career changes, but also family, and then even, I think I in my plan at least. I mean, it's probably not God's plan, but staying on the East Coast, family, and then close to the states that we love, Virginia, the Carolinas. Maybe even moving overseas for a little bit, or two, or else where gospel is needed, where there's foster ministries, there's kids ministries that need leaders, that need friends. That's always been on our radar, and it has been for a few years. I think that's what excites me. And was that your question? What excites you for the future, as far as my life goes? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and knowing that there's a lot of time still spent with my parents and with my brothers, and soccer games and football games and stuff like that. I think that'll be more accessible to me when I do get on a shift that's more horrible. So
Yeah.
waiting on the Lord on His timing on that. But yeah, there's a lot of those things excite me, and really keep me excited about what's to come, especially as we all grow up and start different families, and
Mhm.
hopefully still stay close to each other, geographically. But
Do you guys have a plan for when you want to start your own family?
probably, our plan again could be a different plan, but was 3 to 5 years. First got married, I think plan was like 5 years, and hers was like 2 years, and I was like, calm down, chill.
Whoa.
Let's rewind. Let's talk through this, because I don't know if that's gonna happen. And then as we've talked through it, I think realizing the importance of maintaining yours and your wife's relationship, and that picture of Christ in the church and what it's supposed to be. Me serving and my life, and then respecting and loving, and me loving her, that bond and that oneness that is so important these first few years. And I think getting through that, not getting through, but definitely enjoying that, and then getting through the hardships of life, that I'm sure every couple goes through when they're newly married. I think it would be wise to do that for a few years, and to struggle and to enjoy a little bit of life as a couple, and with other married couples and other mentors. I think it'd be wise to do that before having kids of our own. Um, might change, who knows? But I think that's kind of our forecast is 3 to 5 years starting a family. We'll see.
So my guess is probably not, but did you end up having a chance to listen to Jamin's and I's conversation? It's
Most
okay.
recent one you did?
Yeah.
Not that one yet.
Okay.
I haven't listened to that one yet.
So, no worries. I understand people got lives. So, uh,
You watching my
um,
podcast?
I do. I do. I need likes. Subscribe. No. But the conversation that I had with Jamin was um, they are, I guess he's closer to my age, or they are closer to my age. I think they're maybe a year or two older than me, but, um, similar to maybe where you said you're 22. So you're not 22. You are 22. Yeah. Oh, yeah, like 20. So let's just say, so yeah, about maybe give or take. So that might be okay, 27. But that's about when they started trying to have kids. If I remember right, it's 27. So they have some birthing complications along with two other couples that they know. Um, and they're, right around that age in which it's the same age that Emily and I thought, we want to take some time. I was just out of college. Emily had been out for a little while. I didn't want to have kids right away. Well, it took us almost a year and a half to have our first, and then it took us I think about another year for trying for Isla. So, and now, looking at the future, unless something changes, and our thought is we'll give it to when Isla turns 1, and that'll kind of determine whether or not we believe that we should try for a third. So I say all that because our conversation that I had with Jamin was he wants to have everything in order. He wanted the exact same things that you want. He wanted to be firm in his belief. He wanted to be firm in his relationship with his wife. He wanted to have his finances in order. He wanted to have all these things laid out and perfect before. And so my challenge to him was that essentially, God isn't necessarily calling us to have everything in order. If anything, like you said, like we talked about earlier, it's that challenge, right? If we're not challenging ourselves in one way or another, then we're not growing. And I think I don't think that if you guys had a kid now, that your relationship would change. Like I don't think you would be like, oh well, that's it. I'm done with my wife. Like I don't think that's going to change anything. I don't think your desire to be a loving father is going to change. I don't think there's certain things that, and I love the time that Emily and I had while we were on our own, the chance to travel, go to New Zealand. Like those are things that I love. But I think in the grand scheme of my life, would I have been better off raising 2 more kids instead? And it's again similar to what I told him, but um, most of the time, the people that should be having the most kids are the ones only having 1 or 2 because they're the ones that are thinking about finances. They're thinking about their relationships. They're thinking about stability, like all these things that you want a parent to think about. They're thinking about, but they're only having 1 or 2 because everything has to be perfect and everything has to be in order. And so I guess the challenge is, I believe that you and Libby will both make great parents. And so I would hate that for whatever reason you guys wait. And again, it's like you said before, it's God's plan, right? So you guys could start trying now and you may not have a kid for another 5 years, but you could also get to that point, try to have kids and not be able to have kids. And then, and then you think, well, maybe if we had tried and trusted God to figure out when we were going to have kids. So that was my challenge to them. And I think that's something, obviously I don't expect that you guys are going to change your whole philosophy off of one conversation, but I think it's something to really think about and consider. If you really are truly trusting that it is God's plan, then, maybe loosening up a little bit on those reins and saying, okay, we asked for, originally we asked for 5 years to be together, maybe instead we would like to ask for 1 or 2 years to have on our own. And then, but at the same time, we're still asking for something from God. You're either asking for more time, you know, alone, or you're asking for to get pregnant. But at the end of the day, the whole point is think about it. I would again rather you guys have 5 kids than have some other person that's not thinking about the things that are important. That's gonna raise them in a secular home. That's gonna not take care. Like I would rather you guys because I know you're gonna take care of them. I know they're gonna be in a Christian home. I know you're gonna love them. They have family. They have structure around them. So like all those things, that would be my challenge is to think about that timing a little bit.
I appreciate it. And it's a conversation that we've had, and that was kind of what was the reasoning behind Libby thinking to have kids earlier was because of that, and
Yeah.
people that we've known that have gone through that too. Um, yeah, it's definitely something to think about, and I think you're right. I think people should start, with how complications are and with and uh, you know styles that people lead. Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. Sounds scary to me. I'm not gonna lie, having it that
That's
soon,
okay.
but
That's okay.
I see what I no, I definitely see where you're coming from, and I know people sometimes do wait too late, and it's it's a challenge, but. Yeah, something to think about.
I think a lot of people they get stuck on, when kids are, you hear about teen pregnancies all the time, and it's like, oh, that's, it seems like they're always happening, and like we know multiple people that got pregnant when they were that, young, and it's just like in their teens, and it's like people forget that that's when you're, that's when they're everything is working at that point, and they're, so but the older you get, things change, bodies change, that window of opportunity, to the point where there are apps that track every single detail and it has to be during this time. And so what people a lot of time used to think was super easy, that as soon as we start trying, we're going to have a baby. It's not like that anymore. Or they think, well, because of science, we can have babies as late as we want. And that's again, it's a I believe a misconception. Yeah, they still happen and they're still possible, but it's money, it's time, it's effort, it's all those things. So anybody that says they want to wait, that's kind of my thought. So, but I hear Libby's home, so I will let you go, let you guys enjoy your time, and maybe one day we can kind of pick this up and
Sure.
um, keep talking and see how the family's doing and go from there. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining.
I love it. I can't wait to see how this all turns out. I'm super excited. And I've already loved the conversation you've been having with a lot of other guys. Something we all need, and something especially guys my age need, is something like this, some type of community. Uh, hard questions are asked. So I appreciate you asking the hard questions and through things. I think it's vital.
Thanks, Micah. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Catch you later.